Hello, everyone,
We're live.
and Happy New Year. Oh my Lord, it's the first stream of 2022. So,
Look at
and
that. Good foot.
and we've got a new community team member for any of you who were here at our end of year party. You got to meet Dr. Britt Yazel. But Britt, welcome to the team and Canonical. And I know you gave a little bit of an intro to yourself and what you're going to do the last time, but do you mind kind of giving a recap for anyone new?
Certainly. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be part of the community. Long-time watcher, uh,
First
first-time
time host?
participator. My background, so I'm Dr. Briazel. My background is in cognitive neuroscience and auditory prostheses. Um, of course, I'm not doing that for Canonical. What I'm doing for Canonical is I'm focused on the community. I'm working to help update a lot of the technical documentation, a lot of the technical blogs, work with the people, really get to know what you guys want, and make sure that the Ubuntu and Canonical community is really serving the users that use our software. So hopefully over the next couple of years that'll be fleshed out into a much more tangible goals. But for now, I'm happy to be working on the stream, working behind the scenes, planning some conferences, and I hope to see a lot of people moving forward at some of the conferences that we have planned in the future.
I know it's all kind of just keeping our fingers crossed now. So, what are some of the conferences that you're working on now?
So we have FOSDEM coming up, and Monica, you know way more
Yes,
about
I
that than
will.
I do.
Yes.
So I'll let you take that one. But the one that I'm most working on right now is one called the Linux App Summit. There's been, I think, 4 years of Linux App Summits now.
Hmm.
I attended the OG Libre App Summit back when it was called the Libre App Summit.
Wow, some good geek cred there.
Geek cred, yep. That was in Colorado, but then it's since grown and matured in ways that I haven't been a part of. I'm happy to be back helping. That's going to be coming up sometime in the
Mm.
spring, early summer. Dates are still TBD. Location also TBD. Though it is in Italy, we do know that. Yeah,
Ooh,
we do
how
know that's going
lovely. That is
on.
very cool.
Yeah, and then I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, I'll be helping with the Guadec 2022, which is the GNOME conference. So.
Nice. Yeah, I've been to two of the virtual Guadecs.
Mhm.
The only one I've been to is an open source summit in Seattle this fall when things were kind of a little bit better for a bit. No, but that is fantastic, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing more about the Linux Application Summit once the date and location get finalized, and definitely to maybe hopefully welcoming some of our community members
Mhm.
to attend or give presentations. That would be fantastic. So, FOSDEM, that is coming up very soon. That is virtual. And I'm going to get the link here. And what on Carlos? Hello. We are hosting a virtual booth. We haven't been to FOSDEM in a while. And so this is a joint canonical community venture. We have a discourse post where we are starting to kind of organize things, have some forms. We have thus far we've got some demos and workshops. We have a few of our flavors and remixes who are going to give kind of little showcases and have a chance for people to answer questions. We're also going to have a downstream distro panel, and so far we're very so far we have regular uh, Regolith and Elementary OS who are going to be participating, and we're waiting to hear back on two more. So, and I think that provides a nice segue
So.
into our guest.
So, joining us today, we have Andrew Vojak. Andrew Vojak is joining us from the Elementary OS community.
Hey.
He's been a contributor for a number of years. He's written a number of community apps. His most his newest and probably the trendiest of which is an app called Warble. Andrew, why don't you tell us about Warble?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me here. This is really fun. So Warble kind of came about a little bit of a funny story. So about a little over a week ago on the 3rd, I saw a tweet by Cassidy, one of the co-founders of Elementary OS, and he made this comment that said, "Wordle for Elementary OS win." I was like, okay, what's Wordle? So I Googled it and immediately hooked, right? Just like so many people on Twitter, you're seeing them posting their squares and how many guesses they're getting the answers in. And I kind of got obsessed with that idea of making it, a version of it for Elementary OS. And over the course of a week, in my free time in the evenings, I threw it together, submitted it, and it was published pretty much exactly within a week. And, since then, just interest kind of blew up on it a little bit more than I'd expected. I just kind of threw it out there because it was fun. Had my wife try it, and it was kind of hard to get my laptop back after I had to start playing it. But yeah, it was just fun. Like, I didn't want to make something that was just a complete clone of Wordle, so there's things like you can play basically infinitely. There's about 5,000 possible answers that can be pulled from new difficulties. So you can do like 6-letter words, for example. So I kind of wanted to tweak it a little bit and not just completely take the Wordle concept.
What you put it together fairly fast, which is impressive. What difficulties, any challenges in throwing it together? Any cool logic mind games you had to bend when you're doing it?
Yeah, initially I started off doing the single word of the day, and that was kind of the first cut. Handed over to my wife, and she's like, "Oh, like that's it? Like, I want to keep playing." I was like, "Oh, that's a really good point." Like for mobile, and just with the way things viral are nowadays online, the kind of one a day kind of works in a mobile setting. But for something that I was targeting for elementary on a desktop, it's cool. You open it, you play it once, and then kind of like you feel a little disappointed. But the word of the day concept was a little interesting because I wanted something that, and it's still implemented in the code. You can't use it, but the idea of how do you let everybody get the same word, when they open up the app. So that was kind of like an interesting challenge. And I did that just by picking, a random epoch date back in the past, and then in your local time zone, how many days are you? And then I pre-shuffled the list of words, and you get an index mod, however many there are. So that was a fun little puzzle to sort out. But actually, I'd say one of the hardest things was actually finding a word list to use, because it's not like you can just go out and download the Scrabble dictionary, because that's copyrighted. So I managed to find somebody that had I believe it was an MIT license, which was compatible with was it GPL3 for elementary.
Nice.
So that, something that I didn't even think about till I started. I was like, oh, I'll just go download a dictionary, and not quite that easy. Yeah. Hold on.
Sorry, just to back up real quick. For those watching who don't know how this game works, in a nutshell, and Andrew, please step in if I'm wrong. You're given 6 guesses. Is it 6 guesses or 7 guesses? 6 guesses to guess a 5-letter, or in your case, Andrew, it can be up to a 6-letter word.
6-letter, yeah.
And you're given no context to start out. You just make a random guess, and then it will tell you which letters are correct in the right place in the word, or correct in the word but not in the right place, or not in the word at all. And then that helps you refine your guesses as you go. And it is sneaky difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, especially I won't give any spoilers, but I did do today's Wordle, and I got lucky. I'm not that good at actually playing the game myself. But
yeah, it is. Yeah, I am still on today's word. I have 2 more guesses, and I have no clue what this thing is. It's like all my standard plays. Like, I think I was chatting with Britt and Ken, our manager, in our team chat, and they were like, what are you doing? I'm like, guess aisle for your first one, because it has like,
Aisle's good.
yeah, it has pretty popular letters. So, and that kind of helped. I'm like, oh, this will be great. And then it's just like, no, I'm not getting this. I have a question from one of our coworkers and also our host of the Ubuntu in Davos. Heather, how did you come up with the name Warble?
You know, I don't really remember. I think I didn't want to just, obviously I'm not going to call it Wordle, but something similar. I'm really bad at coming up with names for things. I don't even know. I think I ended up seeing Warble because it also means like some noise that a bird makes or something like that.
Yeah.
And so kind of funny aside for that. I'm really bad at making any kind of like UI assets for anything. And so I was like, oh, it'd be cool to have some kind of like bird in the icon that fits the name Warble. I'm not going to be able to make a bird icon. Really my approach for making any kind of asset for any app that I've made is leverage as much as I can from the brilliant people that do all of the icons for elementary OS and tweak them, pull things out. I can do enough with like Inkscape to, pull SVG elements out and change colors and put new things in, add some text. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. So that's why the icon right now is literally just a keyboard key with the letter W on it, because that's all I can come up with.
It's good. It's good. I just looked up the definition of Warble. It's to sing softly with ever-changing notes. So it's almost poetic. It works well.
Wish I could say that was the intention.
Is Warble in the dictionary of words that you can have?
I think so.
That's
a really good question.
Because it's a 6-letter word. That's unique to yours.
I'm pretty sure
wouldn't
it
be
is.
a bad one to guess.
Oh man, I gotta look this up now to know.
That's the cheat code. You type that in, you instantly win.
It is not actually.
Oh, look at me. My first PR.
Spoiler, don't guess that.
First pull request will be updating your dictionary.
To
insert your own name.
Actually, I think it is in the dictionary. So this is actually a really interesting aspect to the game that I believe is part of Wordle itself. There's 2 word lists. So there's a word of potential answers, and there's a dictionary of valid guesses. And the list of possible answers is a strict subset of the dictionary. And the intent behind that, I'm not sure. You can only speculate on why I think Wordle does this, but it makes sense because you don't want someone to have an answer that's some off-the-wall word that you don't like, what is this word, right? But if they guess it and they happen to know it, you don't want to tell them that's not a word.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a way of balancing, what's going to be a little bit more enjoyable to the user against someone that has a much larger vocabulary than me.
I like Heather's question. Are you planning on making a raunchy version or a different version?
Like a Warble After Dark?
Yeah. Oh man. That's opening up a lot of possibilities right there. I had not considered that. The dictionary that the game uses already strips out a number of commonly inappropriate words. Yeah. Although actually I ended up with some of those still leaking into the possible answers, so I had to fix that last night.
Whoops. That's kind of like there's this popular game on Twitch for streamers called like Words on Stream or something, and one of the people's channels, he was like, please don't guess bad words, and considering you start with 4-letter words, it was really hard not to do that. But also what's bad is that that would let you kind of brute force it with just nonsense words. So you could just put in a bunch of letters, and when it was kind of, It was frustrating, but now I get it that you can't do the same on Wordle or Warble. So, yeah, it's like, oh man, I actually have to I can't just jam a bunch of letters in to see if that works. So,
and
yeah.
Wordle, and then I put this in a slightly different context in Warble, the mode where any exposed clues have to be used. So if you guess like the letter A in the correct spot, subsequent guesses have to
You
use.
have to use it. Oh.
Yeah. Which, I mean, in general, I overthink a lot of things. And so for me, I'm like staring at this, like, what's the most complicated word I can think of? And then sometimes my wife will be sitting next to me like, how are you not getting this? And I'm like, I don't see it. And then I'll come up with some other random word that is a valid guess. And she's like, why did you think of that? Like, it's the obvious answer right in front of you.
Yeah, that might have happened one morning with my husband. I was playing. I'm like, I can't think of this word. And he's like, it's right there. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Yeah. So, so is this, so has this been accepted into the App Store?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
nice.
I think on the 10th, because I think it was pretty much exactly a week from when I started work on it. It was accepted in the App Center. And they're super quick at looking at submissions and giving great feedback. That's been probably one of the best things about developing for elementary OS is, you submit something and then random things with. So I'm new to like Flatpak, and so there's some stuff that I just kind of cobble together from documentation for how to do things. And then I'll submit it, and Danielle will be like, "Hey, there's a way you can do this a little bit easier. You don't need this." And
that's awesome.
Great. It's like great peer feedback from the community.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What was your experience with packaging in a container option like Flatpak? It's very different than like a deb format. Like,
I liked it because I never really sunk my teeth into Debian packaging. It just felt like a lot of files. Like, why do I need this?
It is not for the faint of heart.
No, not at all. So to me, Flatpak was like, okay, it's a different manifest file, fine. But I got to delete a whole folder out of my repos, so I'm cool with that.
Hey, that's nice.
Yeah, I'm always in favor of deleting things. Yeah, it was good. When it comes to like troubleshooting and debugging, it can be a little difficult to figure out where things end up on the file system, because I'm always like just with Debian, it was a little bit more clear on where some of the files landed, whereas now I'm poking around in like a .var in my home directory, and it just gets a little tricky. And I honestly sometimes I still can't figure out where some of my icons end up on a file system. It works. I opened the app and it loaded them. Not entirely sure how or where they're pulling from.
Oh no.
So yeah, I got it. Yeah, well, it's different, but
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've done some flat packing in the past to moderate success. I don't know if you saw our the director or the manager of the Ubuntu desktop team here at Canonical put in some PRs for you for some snap packaging. I don't know if you've.
I did see that. Yeah. So, I saw that last night and I was like, I've never done snap. I have no idea what this looks like. So I'll have to dig in on that a little bit and try to dabble.
Loves to snap stuff. So equally, like that was kind of, I think, over the break that we just have, kind of that was some of his things was just to take things and to snap them. So, but it's really great because I also follow Danielle on Twitter, and she is just so good at just getting those things into the App Store. So and I had the immense pleasure of getting to meet Cassidy this August, so which was really nice. And because we'd gotten to interact on Twitter a lot. I watched the Mandalorian season 1 or 2 on his Discord server, which was enormous fun watching that with a bunch of hardcore Star Wars nerds.
Oh, yeah.
And they just
I
seem
mean,
wonderfully
it's Disney. You're not supposed to say that out loud.
Oh,
Talking about Mandalorian.
yeah. We were all watching. No, we all it was great because we had the most old school way of getting in sync. Cassidy would count down, and of course, between like 1 and 0, it's like 1, 3/4, half. Oh my god!
Yep.
That's awesome.
Our own accounts. Oh,
Yeah.
it's Ken.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I hope we can see Warble in more stores going forward. It'd be great to see it in Flat Hub. It'd be great to see it in the Snap store. Anyway, it's a great game. We need more people to play.
Yeah, I need to look into that. I never really expected to, even consider any of these things. But yeah, I'll definitely be looking into that.
Cool.
Awesome.
So moving slightly away from Warble, as great it is to talk about that, you've been contributing to Elementary OS for a number of years. What got you into that? Why Elementary? What's the passion behind the work that you do?
Yeah. How I actually first learned about Elementary was really roundabout. So I worked in Kansas City after graduating college, and our team was building a Java desktop application for Windows. So, very different, right? There was some rumor that we were going to start doing some Ruby on Rails development. And so the architect on our team sent out an email like, hey, we're going to need to stand up some Linux VMs. Could use Ubuntu, really whatever you want. I just learned about this platform called Elementary OS. I was like, oh, okay, cool, looks great. That was like kind of the first time I heard about it. And then I ended up using it on a old laptop a couple of years later. And, just one of the things that I fell in love with was the consistency and the attention to detail. Not that other platforms don't have that, but just the real dedication to doing things the right way, and not just doing things because that's the way they've always been done. I think one of the easy examples to point to is like icons on your desktop. I used to do that all the time, and then started to bother me, like, oh, there's so much clutter. And then seeing that's just one of those things, like, why do people do that? And kind of encouraging the flow of going to the application to do what you need to do, and then happening to open files versus going to the file and having it. So it just, different things like that I found really intriguing. And then I found Vala to be a very easy language to pick up coming from Java. And yeah, I just thought it'd be fun to write an app. So in 2019, I started working on an app, an IRC client called Iridium. So again, example of not very great at coming up with clever names. But yeah, it's been a fun platform to develop for. Not too difficult to pick up for me, at least, just with my prior knowledge. And the whole process with the community has been great.
So both these apps are
Really
Vala
awesome.
apps written in GTK3, correct?
Yes.
How is GTK3 to write in as a stack?
Yeah, it felt pretty comfortable for me. So the UI framework, I guess that you'd call it, that I did for Java was SWT. And so the kind of, a lot of the terminology and a lot of the way that the UI is constructed in code felt very familiar to me. Slightly different widgets, just learn what is it called in GTK versus SWT, which is kind of what I was most familiar with. And from there, just kind of looking to see how other people did things. Sequeler is a database application that's in the App Center that I, took a lot of inspiration from to see how things were done the right way. And really took the time to try to learn how to do things the Vala way versus just, oh, this is, the Vala port of what I would write in Java.
Yeah. How different are the languages? I don't know personally much about Vala. What's your experience with it? Like, do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you wish it was different?
I like it. I don't really know much of the history around it to, really comment too much on that. But I've really enjoyed it. It's felt very easy. It's a lot of good documentation out there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, the Vala t-shirts on the Elementary store are really nice. I mean, I was thinking, it's like, I could learn Vala just to wear one of those shirts. They were really nice. So that, and it looks like you might have inspired someone to take up some flat packing.
Nice.
Yeah. So going into what was the first you mentioned using flat packs. So what was your first experience with that?
Yeah, so originally, so Iridium was that other app that I have in the App Center. So that started off with the Debian packaging, and with Elementary OS 6, the big shift to using Flatpak for everything. That was the big driving factor behind that. So I was able to test out, with the early access program they had for OS 6, and really just they put out some good documentation on, here's a simple example of how to do it. But then honestly, really looking at other people who have more experience in their apps and how they did it, it was really easy to kind of take the simple example and expand on that to something a little bit more complicated. Fortunately, I didn't have to do anything too crazy. It was pretty much just drop it in, tweak a few things like the name, the platform version. Iridium doesn't have too many complex dependencies, so I didn't have to worry about that too much.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Flatpak that you made for Elementary would be easy to get into the FlatHub store? Is that an interest of yours to put it in the FlatHub store?
I haven't really thought about that. I think one thing that you can do is you can use the App Center, probably not going to get the terminology quite right, but they have their own Flatpak remote. I think it's like flatpak.elementary.io or something like that. So it should be as simple as just doing a Flatpak install of that.
Totally.
But yeah, I definitely understand the appeal of wanting, telling someone to just run a command versus here's a website that presents it in a little bit more accessible format. But yeah, again, I mean, it's been like 10 days since I started on this. So the other platforms and stores, not something I've really thought too seriously about yet. But.
Basically, we all want to play this game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is really so especially I was thinking of what kind of, like, for somebody, whether it was for Elementary with Flatpaks or for Ubuntu with Snaps, if there was someone who had maybe never made kind of one of those things and they were thinking of like their first time, are there certain projects that are, you think, like, for Flatpaks, for example, that you think are more first time user friendly than others?
I think I don't even know if I would frame it in a like Flatpak snap packaging standpoint. One question I see occasionally pop up online is people like, what app should I develop? I want to contribute. And I guess my advice to that would be just pick something you're interested in, even if nobody uses it. Like I did it with Iridium. I worked on it for maybe 2 years even before I submitted it. And
Wow.
it wasn't like I saw this clamor for anybody that needed it. I thought it was something interesting, got to do some cool like socket programming, stuff like that I wanted to just kind of solidify my understanding of. So I built it for myself first, but then also wanting to make something that was quality that the community could contribute to and also benefit from. But really the only reason that I stayed with it as it kind of got more complicated is because I was interested in it. So I think definitely find something you're interested in, even if nobody uses it. And then, kind of once you get your legs under you, if you feel like tackling something that, is a lot more complicated, you've got you've already got like solid footing on developing for a platform.
Very cool.
That'd be my advice.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I know it's only been 10 days, but what do you see yourself doing next? Are you going to work on more apps, continuing polishing the apps that you have? What comes after?
Yeah, I think a little bit more to do on Warble for sure. I've got a whole backlog of stuff for Iridium for my IRC client. Some UI improvements, stuff like that. There's one thing that I really have been wanting to do for a long time that I started doing, but with grad school kind of kicked it to the curb, is build a Game Boy emulator. And I know they're a dime a dozen, right? They're everywhere out there. Everybody's building one. There's some that are, really polished and well established. And I'm not competing with that. It's just something that, like, as a personal project, I've always wanted to, like, have the satisfaction of building. So I started that. I can't get it to boot yet, but that's on my list of things to do.
Does that have a hardware side as well, like a little Raspberry Pi based
machine? Sorry, yeah, I didn't specify. So that's something that I was also targeting elementary for. So another Vala app. It's got a cool icon that someone made. Definitely wasn't me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, those are like the main things that I'm working on right now. I do a little bit of like home lab stuff with like Ansible, Terraform, and Packer. That kind of parallels some stuff that I do in my day job. But so I tinker with that a little bit. Beforehand we talked about the Raspberry Pi stuff, so I've done some stuff with that. Kubernetes on there. I tried out the Elementary OS ARM build. That was pretty cool.
Very cool.
So yeah, I probably not something I would recommend using day to day, but it's still. I mean, it's crazy how far those things have come.
It is like when was it? I want to say Groovy Gorilla 2010. I think was the first kind of Ubuntu desktop that ran really well on the Pi. And I remember putting Ubuntu Mate 2010 on my Raspberry Pi 400. And I could do like Stadia games on it. And they ran decently. And like every now and then I'd be wondering, it's like, why is Firefox going so slow? And I'm like, oh, because this is a little micro computer.
Yeah.
And it's stunning to think of kind of how far those have come and how, like, different, we've been working like on making a version of desktop that can run on even the older Pis. And of course, now we've got the Pi 2 Zeros, and we did this great Twitter poll of how many Raspberry Pis do you have in your house? And I think we got like a not insignificant amount of people saying that they have 30 or more Pis. So
wow.
2 Pis.
Well, I think we have 10 Pis total in the house, but I have 2 that are my personal ones. Nice. Like I said, we live 10 minutes away from a micro center. It's kind of easy to get them.
Yeah, I think I have a couple of Pi Zeros sitting in the closet. I've got this one right here. So this is my 8 gigabyte Pi 4. This is my pride and joy with SSD.
Ooh,
originally, I was going to use them to learn Kubernetes, build a cluster, and then I priced out how much that would cost, and I immediately was like, nope. Like, it's hundreds of dollars, which you would think, oh, it's just a little tiny computer that sells for, people think it's like, oh, it's super cheap, but you add it up, and then you worry about like SD cards getting burnt out, and power supplies, and if you want to do power over Ethernet, that adds like $25 per Pi, and it just adds up like crazy. But yeah. I think I am using one right now to run the Unify like network controller upstairs for home network.
Nice.
So I got one of those in production, if you will.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of our home automation stuff runs off of a Pi. And we've got Heather here, who she tried the 6.1 ARM64 builds on her RPi 4, and it's beautiful. Not performant enough to be a daily driver, but that's not only elementary. That's true. We're all kind of trying to crack that. So
yeah.
How's the driver?
Day.
What's the driver support like on the Raspberry Pi 4? Are there good video drivers for the GPU that's in that? I don't know.
I don't know.
Those SoCs, you know, they can kind of be hit and miss with the proper support.
Yeah, I haven't tried to do anything too crazy with them, so
yeah.
I'm sure that there's someone who has a video out there somewhere of them trying to do exactly that.
Yeah, I know. Have you heard of Jeff Geerling?
I don't.
So he wrote. He basically wrote, the book on Ansible for DevOps. Great guy to follow on YouTube and everywhere. But he does a lot of work with Raspberry Pis and really off the wall things of can I recompile the kernel to support some random GPU? So there's definitely a big community of people out there trying to do that kind of work. So it's pretty cool to follow,
That's pretty cool.
That would be nice. I would be kind of Raspberry Pi Edge cases. So yeah. So I was trying to tell my husband, we were again at my Micro Center, and they had the LED hats that go on top of the Raspberry Pi. Well, it'd be perfect if you got a 6x6 grid that you could output your Wordle or Warble content.
Oh,
make it happen.
Boy,
that would be pretty cool.
Make it happen.
It's a super niche use case, but I like it.
That's what Raspberry Pis are for.
Yeah, that's true. Oh man,
use cases.
I like that. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So very cool.
I'm gonna have to call it a day early for work and run over to Micro Center and pick one of those up.
Yay! See, enabler in chief. So just give me a tiny hey, shout out to Monica for encouraging my Micro Center purchasing habits.
Yeah.
Also apologize to your wife in advance.
She's very understanding. It's good.
That's good. Yeah, it's kind of dangerous when we go there together. So you mentioned graduate school, and you had also mentioned when we were talking previously that you just got your master's this past December.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats. Not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, took a little while, but kind of slowly chugging along in the evenings. And
So what did you get your master's in?
It was a master in computer science through the University of Illinois.
Excellent.
They have a good online program, and I did my undergrad there too. So I kind of gravitated back because I knew the quality of the classes would be, on par with what I experienced in undergrad. It was a good experience, and no PhD. Oh man. Although, I said the same thing when I did my undergrad. I was like, I am never going back to school, blah, blah, blah. And then, 6 years later, okay, well, maybe I'll do it. But this is a terminal degree. There was no thesis or anything.
God, Heather's questions making my eye twitch. I'm like, PhD.
I know. Also, going back to Warble on the Raspberry Pi. Warble for ARM64.
Nice. And actually, I am kind of speculating here. So I know I know for a fact the elementary App Center submission process automatically does an ARM build. What I don't know though is if you install it directly from their FlatHub or Flatpak remote, if it'll pull the ARM build if you're on a Raspberry Pi.
I think if you're on an ARM-based desktop, it'll pull the ARM build.
Okay.
Installs. Yeah.
That's good. That's what I would expect as a user, but I didn't want to get anybody too upset.
We're all going to be firing up elementary on our Pi. So Danielle and Cassidy, if you're wondering why ARM downloads for elementary are spiking after this broadcast, that's why. And also, Britt, just to show you that that question was completely for your benefit.
Such a troll. Heather, get out of here.
Yeah. No, so though I did hear that was that your second master's that you got?
No.
Okay.
No. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
No. One and done.
One and done.
Yeah.
Get in, get out. That's
Yeah.
my kind of guy.
Now, what's interesting is that you and Britt evidently worked on some kind of, because I know Britt got his PhD in neuroscience,
Yes, cognitive neuroscience.
that you all have a little bit of overlap in your academic pursuits.
So, Andrew, from my understanding, you did medical waveform. You did like the CPU performance optimizations and some graphical stuff for visualizing waveforms.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was my first job out of college. That was a whole thing in and of itself. I had never heard of this company, Cerner, that I was going to work for until I interviewed with them, and come to find out they're like one of the largest, in this space. And fortunately, landed on a really great team that was very supportive and mentoring me as a new developer. And so we were working on this desktop application to kind of one of the last pieces of removing physical paper from a hospital setting.
Nice.
Is the waveform data that comes off of the monitors hooked up to a patient. So used to be, it would print off on these really long strips of paper, and they would have to, cut it with scissors and then put it in some kind of record book. And that's horrible, right? And then you'd have to hand measure changes and stuff. So what we were developing in partnership with a company in Minnesota was a way to display all of this waveform data in an application and allow the clinicians to pause it, do the measurements on the computer, and then directly save it off to the EMR, to their electronic medical record, which, never would have thought I'd be doing something like that. Ended up being a blast. It was a lot of fun, and I got to see it deployed at a hospital and watch people start using it, which as a new grad, maybe like 3 years at that point out, but as a new developer, first job, being able to see it have design input early on, help make these informed architectural decisions, and then build it, work on testing it, and then deploying it to a hospital and see people get excited about it was such a great experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really awesome. Is your future work in your professional life going to take you in that direction, or are you now pivoted to something totally different?
It's pretty different. Yeah, very different actually. A lot of what I do right now is part of like a technology modernization effort.
Cool.
So trying to bring, the key word you hear everywhere is DevOps, right? What does that mean? What does that look like? Company says we want to do DevOps. It's like, do you have any idea what that means, right? And all the stuff that comes with that. So really trying to bring some, 21st century development practices, technologies, and make teams more efficient, help them do their job better and easier.
How's that going? Because if it's anything like my experience in academia, trying to get professors using GitHub and not saving 10,000 versions of the same line of like code, really hard to do.
Yeah. Have you ever pushed a boulder up a hill?
Not recently.
Only in
kind of like that
mythology.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
My horror story entering my first research lab, or I guess my second research lab, but the first one in grad school. I joined in and was given all of the old code files, and I swear to God, it was like analysis V1, analysis V2, analysis V2_1, analysis V2, and it's like that's their versioning, and I'm like, oh my God, it's 1,000 of the same file, all with one change.
And then you get like analysis dash final, and then final in all caps, and then actually final.
Final.
Yeah.
Oh, so painful.
It was, but to their credit, I got them on GitHub, and it's lasted. Like, they took it and they ran with it, so good on them.
Nice.
Not every lab was as receptive,
Yeah.
I put it lightly. So that's great. That's great. It sounds like your work is awesome. Just, moving back to your kind of interest in free and open source software and the Linux ecosystem, where do you see Elementary OS moving? Where do you see the Linux desktop moving? What do you think we need to see in the future to make it a desirable platform for folks like yourself who want to make games and apps just for your family to use?
Mhm.
Yeah. Boy, that's a tough question. I really probably only recently, started really tracking, conversations about like the long-term future of platforms like Elementary. Because for me, it's always been like, hey, this is something I enjoy using. It's something that I'd like to use as a, full-time daily driver in the future, and something that I really see the benefit in investing my time in. In publishing apps, and then if someone decides they're going to pay for it, Elementary gets a cut and all that good stuff. Yeah, I would really like to see, I guess, maybe more exposure for it. I feel like it's still, I feel like Linux in general is still a very niche thing. People would hear about it, but it's like, yeah, I don't need that. I feel like that's a really difficult thing to overcome. And I know I have, family members that years ago, like, they just hear Linux and it's like, they equate that with bad experience.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't always been as accessible and user-friendly as what a lot of the platforms are nowadays, and definitely not as refined. I mean, that's come a long way, even since I first started using Linux, not even that long ago, like 9-10 years ago. It's, it's come so far. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about Elementary, is just their attention to detail, their design decisions, is something that, and I think they still have the hurdle to overcome of a lot of people trying to compare it to Mac OS. You're always going to get that. But if you really stop and take the time to do a little bit of reading on where they're coming from and why they're making their decisions, and actually use it for yourself, you'll realize that it's not just a group of people out there trying to copy something that already exists. They're making their own thing, and I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future.
Yeah. And just wanted to bring up that Cassidy is going to be one of our guests on the next Indaba on January 28th.
Awesome.
And he's also going to be joined by someone from our Yaru team. And they are going to be talking all about theming. And also, Cassidy will be joining. He will be part of the downstream distro panel at FOSDEM. And we are, I think, well, it's either going to be Cassidy or Danielle. I'm not sure which one yet, but we're pretty excited about having them there. And it's nice to, see our downstreams doing really awesome things.
Yeah.
I hope to see Cassidy at Lost, because I think Cassidy owes me breakfast.
Yeah.
I think I bought him breakfast recently.
Well, I mean,
he hasn't bought it back for me.
But you're only going to get a continental breakfast, so you're going to get like pastry and a cappuccino. So maybe hold off till you get back to Denver. There's some great places.
Breakfast, yeah.
I mean, come on.
We got some good food out here.
Oh, you're in Denver too.
Yeah.
I forgot. I lived in Denver for 6 years in the early 2000s, and I love that city so much. The food is delicious, and the mountains are beautiful, and it's a really cool place. So
yeah, I'm originally from Illinois, and have a lot of family in the Chicago area. So food wise, it's been very tough to compete with the Lou Malnati's pizza from Chicago, Portillo's, all that good stuff. But we got some good restaurants.
You get green chili and sopapillas that are actual sopapillas, and not the stupid fried flour tortillas dusted in cinnamon and sugar that they are like here in Atlanta. But then again, we get really good
You get good barbecue.
barbecue.
Yeah, like what are you complaining
And
about?
also everything fried. I know, but no, I would like, there's days I would kill for like a good burrito smothered in actual green chili, just with green chili and garlic and pork, and that's it. Yeah,
Sounds good.
it does. So, and that's awesome. There, and it seems like Denver is, especially, I'm hoping that maybe there can be more free and open source events out there, because there's some really great things go, go, going on. You know, you've got like kind of that core element entry group there. You have System 76. We've got some canonicalers there, like Heather, who waves high from the springs. So yeah, so it's neat to be in kind of these, like, I know that Atlanta is kind of doing the same thing. Is that there's a lot of kind of burgeoning tech companies here, and it's kind of neat to see that growth. Of course, not like I've done anything in person with any of those communities in 2 years, but
Yeah.
in the near future, fingers crossed. So
Yeah.
speaking of events in the future, if they're, when things get normal-ish, are there any community events that you're really hoping to get to?
I haven't even looked. I know a couple of years ago, I started to think like, hey, it'd be really cool to, attend some conferences and stuff. And clearly that couldn't happen. So
Yeah.
I honestly, I haven't even considered that yet.
Could I interest you in the Linux App Summit? Because
Yeah.
Italy.
it's fantastic.
I'm still, when you mentioned Italy earlier, I was supposed to go to Italy in 2020 and that didn't happen.
Hey,
so
happen. We could make
it could. Yeah. I'd be on board for that.
I wonder if we'll see Cassidy and Danielle there, because they historically go every year.
Mhm.
I mean, that's where I met them the first time. So maybe you'll get to see elementary folks. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be.
Yeah.
Funny story. So yeah, I'm from Colorado Springs, funny enough. So
Oh,
hello,
cool.
Heather from Colorado Springs. Funny that we're all in some way connected to Colorado. That's very odd. But Cassidy's, he's a Denver resident, and then Danielle is actually where I'm from. So she
Oh,
lives
wow.
just like 20 minutes from me. So
Yeah.
for some reason we can't escape each other.
Yeah.
But I
Small
bet
world.
you all had to go through Atlanta to get to those places. So
I do love
Yeah.
Atlanta. My sister lived in Georgia for a long time.
yeah.
Near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. And even if the airport is just kind of a yeah. Oh, and we had a question though. I think this would be the question about Rust. I think might be better for the Indaba. So, because I know unfortunately that's something I can't answer at the moment, being the non-tech person.
I mean, from my understanding, the support's
The
quite good,
support's there.
and the GTK bindings for Rust are quite strong.
Cool.
I don't see any reason why Rust would be any sort of bad experience on Ubuntu.
Yeah. But also I really love this comment. Yeah. So yes, and the founders, designers, and also the community. And I love that it's not only the founders who did a great job, but the many community devs and contributors like Andrew. So yeah, and that's what we hope for all free and open sourcing things, is that it's their communities that really make them great. So.
And since we're kind of winding down to the end of our time here, Andrew, is there any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave us with? Any words of inspiration for the next gen app developers out there?
Oh man, do it. Have fun doing it. If it's not fun, don't do it. I mean, with grad school definitely got burnt out. If you look at the kind of the joke, right, is to look at your GitHub contribution graph, and it may have phased off by now since it's been some time since then, but I definitely got burnt out probably about a year and a half ago, and I didn't do anything, and that's okay. As long as it's fun and you're enjoying what you're doing, do it. Build something you enjoy. But if it's not fun, your heart's not in it, don't force yourself to do it. So
Excellent advice. All right.
And Andrew, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's
yeah, of course.
a treat bringing you
Thank
on.
you. This was great. And I cannot wait to load Elementary maybe on my little RPi 400 and let us know about how it goes with the little light hat.
Yeah. Hey, open up a pull request or
I will.
an issue on Warble, and I'll that'll give me a good reason to go out to the store and buy it. I'll be good.
Perfect.
And hope we can
All right.
see Warble packaged for more desktops soon. We'd love to all use it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sounds great. Sounds addicting.
Yep.
Might not be the healthiest thing in
It
the
is.
world, but
All right. Well, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you very much for being here. Please, whether you are on Twitch or YouTube, please give us a follow. Hit that little bell so you get notified when we come on air. Our next broadcast will be next week at the same time. And unless there's something that goes on with our sprint, and then we will have to push back. Don't forget, we have our Yannick on air. He will be on not this coming Tuesday, but the last Tuesday of the month with Andrea with their adventures in the kernel. And then, of course, we have our end of month in Daba on January 28th, where we'll have Cassidy from Elementary OS, and we'll have a member of our Yaru team, which is an entirely community-led effort, and I think it will be great. So thank you everyone for watching. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.